You have about 15 seconds when people make a decision about whether they want to live somewhere or not.
Welcome. You're listening to the Apartment Investing Show. This is where you'll learn how to start or scale your apartment investing career. Your host, Adam Adams, founded such an incredible meetup that Meetup HQ flew him in as their guest speaker. Adam and his guests will show you how to create residual income by investing in apartment communities. Now, here's your host, Adam AAA Adams.
I am your host, Adam AAA Adams. I'm really excited today because we're having a topic that we don't usually have. In fact, we've never had this topic on this show before. So you're about to learn something kind of cool. And what's even more fun about this is what we're talking about is how just small amounts of money placed in the right places on larger multifamily properties can make a world of difference. So we have Lisa Landry on the show right now, and she's going to be talking about how she's been helping other owners over the last 20-something years, I believe, to be able to, it's you know how you have on those single-family homes, you go and get somebody to stage the home. They put a couch, they put flowers, they do a few things like that, and it makes a world of difference that because when you're fix and flip, people walk in, they can actually see themselves living there. That's kind of what we're talking about, but on a much bigger scale. So instead of helping you make an extra 10 grand, today we're going to help you make an extra couple million. So with that said, Lisa, tell us a bit about your background, how you got into multifamily. I know you own multifamily, and I know you also help other owners to stage their properties, or to, I guess I'm using the word stage when we should be talking about what's the real term for it? What am I missing here? It's not staging, it's decorating.
Really,
right?
Just designing. Yeah, really just adding interior design to the properties. So first of all, thanks for having me. It's great to be on the show. It's an honor. I just think so highly of you, so I appreciate you having me on. And really what we're talking about is taking a property that is dated. Whenever a syndicator or a property group buys a property, it typically is kind of dated looking. And so they want to do whatever they can to freshen it and up that NOI. And so our first step usually is to go ahead and work on the leasing office. That's where we get started, because that's like the jewel of the property. That's the center, that's the hub. And there's kind of three things that happen when you upgrade and freshen the leasing office. First of all, the people that work there just love it a lot more. They're happy to work there. They're proud to come to work. You have better employee retention. It just feels great. It's laid out properly. The traffic paths are good. There's function and form combined. So that's kind of one element. The second element is the current residents that live there. They then are more proud of their property. They are coming into that leasing office pretty frequently. And so being able to, know that the place that they live is up to date, cool, it's a fun place to live, all of that really plays into their mindset of where do I want to live? So that's kind of the second thing. You have a little bit better resident retention then. And then the third thing is for potential residents, which is really the most important part, when you're trying to keep that occupancy rate up. When the potential residents come in, that first impression better be like kapow. I mean, it better be right in their face. This is awesome. This is kind of jaw-dropping. We specialize in B and C class properties. That's what we do. So it better be like, it looks like an A property on the inside, but it's pulling up that B or C to the next level. So I think that's super important, is how the leasing office looks. We're looking at things like, when you come in, what is the very first thing you see? You have about 15 seconds when people make a decision about whether they want to live somewhere or not. So they better be greeted quickly, by a leasing agent. They better see something cool. They better not have any kind of bad experience in that first 15 seconds. So that's what we're always looking at, is making sure that everything is laid out properly, that there's an inviting feeling when they first come in, and that it looks awesome. So we're doing things like changing out the lighting, adding really interesting chandeliers. We're doing a lot more modern elements than we used to do. A lot of younger families live in these apartments, and the younger population tends towards modern elements. That's what they are drawn to. So we do these really pretty modern, just very clean, not cluttered, not over accessorized, very clean and structured throughout the space. So that's kind of what we do for the leasing office. We want to make sure that, we address the paint colors, the ceiling color, what flooring is there. A lot of times we use the same flooring that you're using in unit interiors, because then they kind of get that feeling of what's going to be in their unit, which a lot of times is a luxury vinyl plank or, something of that sort. So we'll use that a lot of times, and then do interesting things on the walls, change out the desks, make a cool lounge where they can hang out while they're waiting for someone, have a beverage station of some sort, make it the most inviting experience that we can. So in addition, we're looking at maybe like the fitness center or adding a business center, even if it's just taking one small corner of the leasing office and adding a small desk or two, then you have a quote unquote business center, which is great for your amenity list on your website. That's what we're looking for, is anything we can do to increase that amenities list and have someone, when they're looking online, choose to come see your apartment maybe instead of somebody else's. So that's kind of a few things for the leasing office.
Yeah, because it would make sense that if you're a potential resident, that what you're doing when you're looking for places is you might click the things that you might want to see. So the more of those clicks that you could get, the more likely they're going to actually see your property. So that's really interesting. It's a way of thinking that I haven't thought of before, of just making sure you have the most amount of amenities to get more eyeballs on your property. Especially with the way that internet works now. There's less people just driving around looking for a property, and they're actually searching on different websites that are being helpful and trying to only put business center if you want a business center, or fitness center if you want a fitness center. And if there's people that aren't looking for a fitness center or a business center, they'll still find you. But for the people that are looking for it, it's the only way that they find you, right?
That's right. And I think too, having it professionally photographed, we do professional photography a lot of times as soon as we're doing the big reveal day for the leasing office. But the professional photography is so important because those images need to look amazing on the website. That's the other thing, is people are looking first at the pictures. How does it look? How does the property look? And then at the amenities list usually. And I mean, also what size apartments are they? What price range apartments are there? All of those elements are really important in their decision-making process. We also take into account, what does it look like when you drive up to the leasing office? So we paint a lot of times that building different than the other buildings around it. Even if we're not painting the brick maybe on other buildings, maybe we're just doing siding, we will choose possibly to paint the brick of the leasing office so it really, again, stands out like the jewel of the property, and people know how to get there easier. So we're looking at, what does it look like from the exterior? What does the front door look like? What does the door handle look like? Those are all first impression things. That's like somebody having scuffed shoes or chipped nail polish or whatever. It just doesn't look all pulled together if you're not addressing every single element. What does the front doormat look like on the outside? It's great if it has your logo on it, and your name. That's like going into their psyche. What is the glass clean? Is the door handle clean? We don't want a lot of stuff around. We set it up when you come into the leasing office where it looks perfect. We'll put like your flyers or your brochures like in a very specific place. We don't like to come into leasing offices and have stuff just spread out everywhere where it looks junky. And we have to be cautious too about decorating for like holidays. That can get cutesy real fast. So using very subtle things and keeping in mind that we want this to look high end, even if it's not high end. Even addressing what is the landscaping right at the leasing office. We work on branding with owners and with landscapers and painters and all those kind of things to make sure you have a cohesive feel for the property. So what is right there? Is it blocked when you're trying to get out of your car? Are there shrubs you have to go around or something? Do those need to be removed and flowers put there? Do we need to flank the door with containers with flowers in them? All of those elements come into play and how people feel about where they're going to choose to live. So that kind of sums up the leasing office just in general and whatever else is attached to it. And you mentioned the fitness center, and even if people don't use a fitness center, most people don't use the fitness center at the apartment. They work out at home, they go work out at a gym or whatever. But just to say you have one, even if it's a small one, is a subtle thing that they are comparing when they're going to look at 2 or 3 apartments, and you walk them into this really cool looking fitness center that may be small, but it looks dramatic and modern, that they think, oh, I could come here and work out for free, So we don't want to have any areas that we're not checking that box if possible.
Good stuff. I want to kind of talk a little bit about some of what you've said. My first question, though, is around the professional photography that you say that you use on reveal day, I think is how you termed it, reveal day. Do you suggest apartment owners get drone footage of the outside of the buildings?
Yes, I think that's a great question. And that's something that's just now coming into play. But any kind of video that you can get, that helps too for your SEO to be pulled up higher when people are searching and that kind of thing, So video on your website is a great tool. They can look at pictures first. They can read things. They can see friendly faces. We want to have the website looking amazing. When a property owner contacts us, first thing I do is go to their website. I want to see, what does that look like? Because that's the first impression. And so many times it does not look great. We need to make sure that looks great. All the images are fresh, once things are redone. And then the drone footage it's like cherry on the top. It's like an added thing that not most websites are going to have. So I think that's a great, inexpensive thing you can do to set yourself apart.
It's more affordable than you would expect to have somebody to drone your apartment community. Good stuff. So for the apartment, when you're looking at the first thing that you need to focus on when working on an apartment community, it's really the first impression, the leasing office. You mentioned that it helps 3 different people. It helps the leasing associates, the staff, be more happy and be more efficient in their workplace and be more proud of where they're working. It helps the current residents notice that something's changing at the place, that they really like us. They're really happy with us. So we're happy with them. And this is so nice. I want to go and hang out in that leasing center. I want to go and see it, and they appreciate it, and they're proud to live there. And the third one was what the new residents were their first impression, the first 15 seconds. And you discussed a little bit about, what they're going to see as they drive up: flowers, paint, brick, striping in the parking lot, if it's new, if it's old, if the parking lot's being deteriorated. And when they walk in, the handle, the windows, are the windows clean? Do you have a nice door? And all of those things. And I loved another thing that you mentioned was something that I would have neglected just because my natural personality, it doesn't think the way that you think. And so I would have been like, oh, get all of our stuff everywhere. Like, brand it, put it all in front of everybody, make it so they can't see anything but our brand, because that's just me. But you talked about being able to be a little bit more tactful when you actually place things in just a few spots where it makes the most amount of sense, and have the rest of it clean and clear and free of clutter. So I thought that was really interesting, all very helpful when looking at an apartment community. And we've decided to have the flooring and the paint in the leasing office a certain way, and we're all done with that. What's step 2 after leasing office?
Step 2, and it can be in conjunction with, and many times it is, but step 2 is really the exterior buildings. What do they look like? The buildings themselves. Do we need to go ahead and change paint? What's our budget range for that? What have y'all put in your CapEx to do? And so we talk through what our options are. We either walk the property or we do it virtually if it's an out-of-state property, because we go nationwide. But we're looking at, what can we do to make this more modern and cool? Most of these properties are 70s and 80s properties. They don't have the best design, at this point. A lot of them have mansard roofs and things like that. So we're always looking to see what can we do to make this look modern and like a LA apartment or a New York apartment building. How can we make it appeal to this younger, resident that's typically living here? So we help with that. We help choose all the paint. We can put it into something where they can visualize what it's going to look like. And then we're also looking at, do we want to add cedar plank siding anywhere as accents? What about the trash area? Do we want to put some kind of surround to hide that? What about AC units that are exposed? Do we want to add shrubbery or something around those? What kind of landscaping is there? What does the property look like? Are there cigarette butts like everywhere in the grass? Those kind of things. If we're going to have a dog park, let's call it the Bark Park and put a cool sign up and things like that. So we're walking the whole property and looking for spaces that we can add amenities. What color is the pavilion going to be? What color stain? What color stone is going to be on the grill stations? Whatever we choose, we need to make sure that we have a cohesive feel for the whole property, and that whatever color palette we choose, we pull that through the property. What is that front sign going to look like? The monument sign.
Yeah.
What design will that be? What vibe are we trying to go for? What's the resident base? How old are they? Do you have mostly families living here, or do you have a lot of single professionals living here, or do you have a lot of students living here? What is your customer base? And we need to go towards that as we're branding throughout the property. So that's really step 2.
I love what we're talking about. I've got a couple of friends that work on some of the things like what you're talking about, but I know a lot of people that don't think about all these things. And the way I look at it is I generally, when I help other people attract their avatar, I haven't really thought about it in terms of apartment communities, attracting your specific tenant. How old are they? Are they students? Are they families? What are they into? I haven't really thought about it like that. I've thought about it like, if you're going to launch a podcast, how do you launch a podcast that your avatar jumps on? And I talk about if you want to raise equity, how do we put out information and value, and where do we put it so that your exact passive investor, because they're all different, is attracted to you? And you're taking this to another level for me when we're discussing the avatar for the client base, the resident base, who's going to be living there. So now I'm thinking in terms of, all right, all I've got is 1 bedrooms on this. So what type of person am I serving now? What do they like about it now? And what are they into? And do they all have dogs? If they have dogs, how expensive is it to just put a fence up and call it a bark park? It's very inexpensive. I'm serving my exact perfect client that's helping them be more happy. And if I've got more 3-bedroom, 3-bath units, maybe I'm catering more to families, and we've got to have, maybe in lieu of a dog park or in addition to a dog park, maybe we need to have a park for the kids, a place for the kids to play. And I like how you were talking about the colors that you use, the psychology that you use, covering up the AC units with shrubbery, putting cedar planks over top of some pieces of the building to kind of just allow it to look more modern. A lot of good stuff. You mentioned the Mansard Roofs, and I was wondering, because I've seen some people completely get rid of mansards. I've seen some people switch out the shingles for siding instead. What are your thoughts on the mansards? Because you're right, in these 70s, 80s, C-class buildings that my company's been closing on, we have a lot of flat roofs and mansards up at the top of the buildings where it kind of looks like a roof, but it's not a roof. It's like siding, horizontal, vertical siding almost. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think they can look really cool. I think if the shingle color is not good, if it really is not great, then I think replacing the shingle color with a dark charcoal gray or close to a black can look really dramatic. Then we can get high contrast with something. Or if it is going to be replaced, then going back with the siding, is an option, which looks completely different. It looks real architectural. I mean, the mansard roof comes down like 25 or 30% of the building a lot of times, so it can become a real architectural feature. And I love working on those. I mean, I was walking one just the other day in Fort Worth that, we're picking all the different paint colors for the building, and we're leaving the brick. The brick is okay. The roof is a mansard roof, but it's pretty dark gray. And just being able to choose some cool paint colors then, is really all we needed to do. But each property is different, and we just assess each one, like, what could we do with the biggest bang for the buck in this situation, and just go from there.
So cool. I think of it like kids. You have so many kids, but you can't ever raise them the same way. Like me, my sister, my brother, we're completely different people, even though we have the same parents. And my two sons are complete polar opposites. One of them wants to do this, the other wants to do that. But when you look at all the different people out there, we all need different things. And when my mom needed to tell me something that she needed to do, she had to tell me differently than how she would have told my sister. And that's kind of with these properties, to show that they are completely unique. They have their own style. They're in their own neighborhood. They have their own tenant class. They have their own materials that you're already working with. And then it's, what do you do to get through to them? What do you do to get through to this child? And sometimes it sounds like it's more landscaping, parking lot. Sometimes it's changing the mansard shingles to a darker shingle, adding cedar planks to the side of the building, covering up different parts. But it's interesting. Or bark parks. I'm gonna have to get used to bark parks. I like the way that you've labeled those. So with the branding and addressing each property as a unique individual property, and not trying to blanket class that you're going to treat them all exactly the same. What was I going to ask? Okay, so for the modern, what are there some colors that you are using in 2020 and beyond that you weren't using a couple of years ago, that maybe the listener might be thinking of, man, if I could add those colors or that color scheme, grays or greens or oranges or whatever they are, then maybe I can really make something pop and be attracting that newer age demographic, a lot of the millennials and such.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, that's a great question, because we are trying to go for modern, whatever we do. And we were in a period, a few years ago where a lot was neutral. Everything was sort of neutral. Now we're using a lot of color. I mean, color is going to be super strong for 2020 and 2021. So high contrast, that's what our design team is known for, is really dramatic high contrast. So you can use, like, for example, in a lot of the leasing offices, it'll have old trim and, baseboards and ceiling molding and all of that type of thing. And we don't want to change all that. That's a big expense to do. But if we paint it black, we use actually a color called caviar. That's a Sherwin-Williams color. That's a soft black. If we use black, we create real high contrast. And then we can go back with, like a gray luxury vinyl plank floor, do something interesting on the walls. We might do some of the walls black, some dark charcoal, some light gray. We're still seeing lots of grays in this world. We're starting to see trends going more towards taupe and kind of back to browns in residential. But in really modern design right now, we're still using lots of grays. They may be more brown-based grays than they were before. So for the base neutrals, I think grays and blacks and taupes are awesome. We do like white as a high contrast accent for some things, but a lot of times we'll use it in like lighting or accessories or something that doesn't get dirty. Our eyes are drawn to white. Whatever's white or light colored, that's what our eyes are drawn to first. Just like if you wear a white baseball cap or whatever, your eyes are going to go straight to that cap.
I did not know that.
That's the way our eyes are made. Yeah. Or our white teeth, So anything white draws your eye straight to it. So we have to be real cautious where we use it. We want it because it does create high contrast. But for example, a lot of people will use light colors on the walls in the leasing office, and they think it makes it look bigger. And it can, it depends on the situation. But we might have a wall that seems real close to you, and we'll paint it black or dark navy or something to push it away from you to make the space feel bigger. So dark colors visually recede and light colors come towards you. So there's all those little tricks that, we're always playing with. Then for accent colors, like if we're going to pick a color for a property, we want to see, what is the logo? Have y'all developed the logo yet? I just worked on one that they sent me like 6 logos that the logo company had come up with. And I was able to give feedback on the text styles, and they gave us, several options, which ones I thought looked great with the property. And then the color choices, like, do we want to go with royal blue? Do we want to go with orange? Should we go with turquoise? Those kind of things. So once the logo is developed, and that's why we like to be involved from the beginning, because we can help with that branding, then we'll use that color throughout the property. And we are seeing lots of cobalt blue, turquoise still, which, blue and turquoise are colors that men and women equally love. Typically it's replicating, the sky, the ocean. Everybody seems to be drawn to water. So royal blue and turquoise is always a good combination to use. But we are seeing accents of orange and bright yellow and emerald green. Lots of emerald green we're using, like emerald green and white and black. That's a beautiful leasing office color palette. Or royal blue, black, white with a little bit of orange or yellow. Those kind of combinations are really interesting visually. We don't want to do something that some people might not like, or a lot of people might not like. We want to make sure that men and women both feel very comfortable coming into the space. And you mentioned the avatar. If you do have a lot of families with young children, then we're going to recommend you put more money into the playground. Do a bigger playground equipment set. If you have a lot of students, maybe make the business center bigger where they can get out of their tiny little apartment and come have a space to spread out and work on a project or something like that. So definitely keeping that in mind, who your priority resident is, your goal resident.
So, summing up some of what we've talked about is the leasing office is really where it starts. The branding, the leasing office is really where it starts. Then you start working on the exterior. I would almost say that there was one step before the leasing office, and that would just be kind of defining the brand, getting the logo, the colors, and understanding who the avatar is and who you're attracting. And then once you really understand all of that, then you attack the leasing office and then the exterior. One question that I have for you, I think it's an important question because it's almost like in my mind, it's very polarized. Because on one hand, I hear you talking about get the money into the leasing office, get the money into the exterior, get the money into the playgrounds, the parks. And what I've heard a lot of apartment syndicators saying is, we're skipping all of this money. We're not going to waste it on these things. They really spend most of their time in the unit, and so the only place we're going to put money is $3,000 or $6,000 per unit, and we're going to go straight there. What would you say to somebody like me who's heard both sides? And secondly, after explaining, how you would address, where to really start, I want to understand where in the process do you start focusing on the interior of the actual units?
Yeah. Well, and it's very common that we're doing multiple things at one time, like the branding that you're talking about, and starting to walk the property to look at the exteriors and starting to look at the leasing office. Sometimes they've got their budget where they're just ready to go on everything, and we just sort of do all these things at the same time. We do need to make sure that we have our avatar and our branding kind of solidified before we really get into it deep. But those really are the first things. And the reason I say those are the first things is because image is everything. And so much of the attraction is online presence. And you have to have your image developed with your brand, your logo, your pictures of your leasing office, all of those kind of things are what people see first. They're not seeing the unit interiors first. If you have a terrible looking leasing office and great looking interiors, it just doesn't match. That's not your brand then. We want it to be cohesive throughout. So I always recommend starting with the leasing office and the exteriors first. Then as soon as all that's going, now that might take a while for all the exteriors to be painted. We have furniture to order for all of the leasing office. That's going to take, 8 weeks or something to come in. And so during that time, that's the time that we typically move on to two things: the model unit, if they're going to have one, that we can work on that also. Some syndicators want one and some don't. Sometimes we have a staging company also, and we'll go in and stage the property, a model that's, it's really not even a model, it's just a vacant unit. We'll stage it, have it professionally photographed, and destage it. And then they have those images for their website to show kind of their model, but they don't have one for people to walk through. So some syndicators love having a model and some don't. That's kind of personal preference. So we'll work on the model unit if they have one, and then also start on those unit interiors. I think for the apartment community, most of the syndicators are men, and most of the people that are in this community are men. And they always just think, let's just start tearing stuff out and put some new cabinets and put some new cabinet doors and
give me a sledgehammer,
rip this floor out. And so it seems really fun to y'all. And the design part maybe just doesn't come quite as naturally. It's a different element, but I think they're both important. I think we just need to get that image and branding first.
So I know you're helping a fellow podcaster, influencer, friend of mine who's got a property, I think in I don't remember if it's Georgia or Alabama, but it sounds like you don't just work in DFW. Is that accurate?
That is accurate. When we first started, I started the company over 20 years ago, and we're in Texas. We're in the DFW area, and we just always decorated in Texas, somewhere in Texas. But once we got into the multifamily world, people are buying all over the country. Even if they live in Texas, they're buying in different places. And so we just started working on things sort of virtually, and then we go and do the leasing office installation or the model unit installation in person. We're always there. We call it the big reveal day, and we oversee all of that. But yes, we've worked on 2 in Arkansas, 1 in Alabama that you mentioned, Huntsville. We're working on 1 in Tennessee right now, so we're expanding and going wherever we need to go because that's where the business is.
So there's, I know we've gotten a lot of cool, useful tips, but at the same time, we've gotten useful tips and at the same, you're not supposed to say but. It negates what you say before. We've gotten a lot of cool, useful tips, and there's probably some listeners that are similar to me. We're men, and we want you to give us the hammer and let us go to town. And we're not trying to think like a designer. And so really the question that I have is, even though we've gotten some really good, useful tips, there's probably a few people that want to work with you and want to know how to even work with you. And maybe they're in a different city than you mentioned. Maybe they're in Arizona. Maybe they're in who knows. The question is, what does it look like to bring you on board so that we can start getting this designed and not just be bringing a big sledgehammer to the table?
Yeah. And I think the more quickly we can get involved from the very beginning, like typically we're getting involved before they close on the property. They've got it under contract, they're in due diligence, they're getting ready to go. It's looking like it's going to close. That's when they call us in. So we'll usually do a phone call first, just to kind of talk about the property. I do a lot of research on the website, the current website that they have, so I can see kind of what the property looks like if it's not right here local. If it's local, we go walk the property. But if it's not, then we do it virtually like that. Then they send me typically images of the current property. They might walk and take a few exteriors, take some pictures of the leasing office, the way it looks. I review those. We have a Zoom call then where I can share my screen and we can walk through kind of my ideas of what I would do just in general. Once I see how big the space is, then I can give the budget range. We actually have free design services. We sell all the furnishings for all these properties. We buy from manufacturers around the world. We buy at wholesale and sell at retail just like stores do. So it's free design services for everything we sell, which is different than the way a lot of decorators work. It's completely different. But they think, well, why have I been trying to do it on my own then if it's free? So that's what we do. That's how we stay in business. So we're going to give them a budget range for their size of property. Like, let's say it's a leasing office. It might be, the budget range could be from $10,000 to $100,000. You know what I mean? Depending on how big it is, what quality do you want? I've had some, properties that they want it really, really nice quality. I've had other ones that are like, nope, I just want it to look good. We're going to keep this property for 3 to 5 years. Then we're going to turn it over. It just needs to last that long.
That's me.
I know, then I know, but I have other I have other property management companies that I work with that they buy and hold. There's a lot of families out of California that own properties in DFW, like 50 properties, and they buy and hold. They're not selling ever. Like, they just pass it down on their family. They just want that cash flow. So with that kind of client, they really want it to last about 10 years. They don't want it to last 5 years. So I use a little bit different quality for them. So then and I have a team of 12. Then we know what vendors of ours to go to choose once they've narrowed down what range of the budget they feel comfortable with. Once I've seen the size, I can say, well, yours would be from 10 to 25,000 on average for a leasing office. Where in that range do you feel comfortable? And then they can tell us where they feel comfortable, what they budgeted, and then we can get to work. So once they want to work with us, we take a retainer for 10% of the budget, do all the designs. We present to them via Zoom or in person, whichever is easiest. And we show options. Like, we might have done 2 or 3 different options, and we have them pick their favorite. So they're really involved, and it's very personalized for the syndication team, whoever wants to be involved in the project. And then we take it from there, and they don't have to do anything, and we just show up and do the big reveal day.
Good stuff. Love it. All right, we're going to get into the final 5, but first, a quick word from our sponsor.
What's Blue Spruce Boardroom? It's Adam Adams' private inner circle program that helps serious investors take their businesses to the next level with 24/7 access to our private Facebook community, exclusive mastermind retreats held at luxurious resorts around the country, bi-weekly coaching calls, education, support, and monthly meetings. This is the full immersion you need in order to get from where you are to where you want to be in your real estate business. When you join Blue Spruce Boardroom, you'll become close with Adam and the other members of this exclusive inner circle. You'll meet accredited investors, deal sponsors, high net worth key principals, as well as real estate influencers. The perfect combination for you to take your business to the next level. Apply today by following the link in the show notes.
And we are back with Miss Lisa Landry. I like the double L. Just like my double A, makes me happy.
That's right.
Lisa Landry, what is the most creative deal you've ever done?
There's a property in Dallas that we did a few years ago that was a clubhouse. It was a leasing office that was attached to a fitness center that was surrounded by glass. Like, the whole fitness center was surrounded by glass, like all glass walls, basically. And the lounge area that we were creating was see-through to there. And it was a really high ceiling, like 20-foot ceilings in this lounge area we were creating. And it had these big beams up at the top that were like railroad trestle things, black giant beams across the top of the ceiling. And the owner of the property was like, I think we should just take those out. I don't really like those. And I'm always looking for what can we do that's cheaper and what can we do that looks cool architecturally. Well, I think that was a great architectural feature. So I ended up suggesting that we paint those silver, which we did. And then we used black accents and like a deep teal and grays and different things and made this lounge that was attached to the fitness center so that if the fitness center people worked out and they came over to this area, I had to make sure all the furniture that they could sit on, that it wouldn't get, ruined by sweaty bodies or whatever. So that was a little bit of a challenge, picking things that were good for that looked cool from the other side of the fitness center, that blended with the fitness center equipment. And, then we added the silver for the trestles, which became like the color of a lot of the equipment in the fitness center. And I entered that one in an international design contest. And I actually entered 6 that year. And they won 1st, 2nd, and 3rd in the contest for the commercial category, which was funny because there were so many things entered in that contest that were real high-end properties, commercial just in general. And these were all like C-class properties, that won 1st, 2nd, and 3rd. So that one turned out really fun and dramatic.
That's so cool. I love that. What's a book you recommend?
I just read recently Joe Fairless's best ever apartment syndication book. And that is a thick handbook, I'm here to tell you. But that's so educational. There's so much information in there. It's just so packed with information. I went to the best ever conference, recently. And you were there also in Colorado. Yeah. And I sat next to Theo Hicks, who's the co-author of that book. Like for 2 days solid, we sat next to each other and talked. And it was so, I was just like fangirling because he was such a big part of that book. And I think they're great educators.
They are. I completely agree. One interesting thing about that book is I used to think that I was the only one who knew some of these like marketing tricks. I used to think I was the only one who knew them or could teach them. And he's got all these really awesome ways of attracting capital, of starting a podcast, starting a thought leadership platform. That book's super valuable. And I think it's only like, when I bought it, it was like $50. I think it's 40 or something now, 45. But I would have paid 100 times that easy. I think that they've done such a great job, and they've got a really good podcast as well.
Yep.
Well, now I can't even think of my next question because I'm fanboying with Theo and Joe as well. However, let's get into it. So 5 years from now, where do you see the market and where do you see yourself and your business?
Yeah, I think for the market, it's going to be great. I just think it's going to be killer. I think multifamily is the place to be. I think just these trends of people not wanting to maintain properties and having this like social community and where they can walk to things. And they like apartment living now much more than, our previous family members did. Previous generations, that was your goal, was to own a house and have all this big yard and have everybody over all the time. And there's a lot of stress and maintenance that goes with that. And so I think apartment living is going to get more and more popular, down the road. And I think the market will recover from everything we've been going through recently.
You think that's within a short recovery year. Or within a year?
I think within a year or two, things are going to be like just going and blowing again. I think it's going to be great. I think there are, some areas, some industries that might be hit harder, but I think multifamily is going to be very strong.
Awesome. And
so that's the market.
Your own business?
And then, yeah, my own business, we're continuing to grow. And my goal is to be known as the multifamily decorator, nationwide. And that's what we've been working on for the last several years is we also do residential and commercial, but we love working on multifamily. We really feel like it's transforming the lives of these people who live here, who live in the properties and the lives of the people that work there. Yes. Yeah. And the lives of the syndicators and the investors, the passive investors. So I just love the whole industry. I think it's super fun. I think it's challenging. I think you're always learning something new. Every day is different. So we are focusing on more and more and more multifamily nationwide.
Love that. And how do you add value to others?
Well, I do a lot of education. I'm doing a webinar tomorrow that's about design and do a lot of things locally with education and training with, realtors, do a lot of things with realtors, with staging and all those sorts of things that we just give away a lot of education for free just to try to, again, become the, leader in our area in this field. We're very well known in our area. We've been voted the best interior designer in our area for the past 7 years in a row by local people, which is always so, exciting and fun. So that's one thing. And then I also am very much an animal lover. And so I give back to animal sanctuaries across the country, basically. That's kind of my charitable thing that I do is animal sanctuaries.
And what is the number one best way for the listener who's excited about working with you for free, apparently, for wholesale prices? Yep. What is the single best way for them to reach out to you and start making that happen?
Yeah, the best way is really by email because I'm just checking that, throughout the day. It's Lisa Landry, Landry, at Landry Designs, which is plural, landrydesigns.com. And they're welcome to check out our website to see some of our work too, which is landrydesigns.com.
Perfect. So it's landrydesigns.com. That website is in the bottom of the show notes. So scroll down right now and you can get the website. And also the emails right next to it, Lisa Landry at landrydesigns.com. Both of them are in the show notes right now. So reach out to her. Let her help you make a whole bunch of money and help your residents, your leasing office, and everyone else win, including your own passive investors. Lisa, thank you for coming on the show. I'm going to let you go, thank you so much. I will let you go, but until next time, think outside the box. As a reminder, any investment opportunities mentioned on this show are for accredited investors only. And if you're interested in working with me and my team, then go to realbluespruce.com and click Get on the List. It's that simple. Just click Get on the List to start passively investing. This has been an episode of the Apartment Investing Show with me, Adam Adams. All rights are reserved. And if you haven't done so already, then make sure that you absolutely smash that subscribe button. And I'll see you on the next episode.